Well, welcome. I'd like to call the work session to order, please. First item on the agenda is the downtown mural. Mark Calitri, President, CEO, visit Owensboro. Please come to the podium. State your name and address for the record, please.
Mark Calitri of Visit Owensboro, and I live at 320 Hill Avenue.
Good city resident.
It's a great location, Mayor, right behind Starbucks and Walgreens, and everything's right
Used to
there.
be my old paper route.
Well, as you know, the downtown area is key to Owensboro's economic development, and so Gary and I came today to talk to you about the Kentucky mirrored mosaic. You've seen some of the articles in the paper recently, and from those articles they produced a lot of positive responses back on social media. So we've taken this on as an initiative to try to address this. So the question is it worth replacing, and then what's the ultimate cost? So those are two very important questions that we've had to ask. So what we did was we went to Franklin, Tennessee, and took a tour of their downtown. We went through their ambassador program, and they've got a really vibrant downtown. They've got an active art scene. They've got some vibe and energy there. And so we're asking ourselves, can we mirror that here? One of the facts about Franklin is they have 100% occupancy in their downtown, and they have 40 businesses on a list waiting to get in and open downtown. So we think that there's opportunities here, and so this mosaic could be a part of a process for Owensboro to continue building the positive art scene we have, and it'll help us attract visitors and potential business owners as well. So in part of our research, we found a lot of other cities said that this type of project would cost between $40,000 and $80,000 to build. And so what we've started is a process of getting a broad support of public and private support for it. And so our cost is much less than that. And so right now what we're asking for the city is to consider $8,500 money to help push us over the goal line on that. And so one of our keys to success, our secret weapons, is Gary Billfeld, who installed this project over 35 years ago with a life expectancy of about 10 years. And so it's a labor of love for him, and he has a lot of passion for this project. And so that means a lot for us getting involved. And so we feel like this could be a very important project for us and help all of Owensboro downtown continue to thrive. And so we're available for questions. Gary can answer questions that you might have as well.
So you say you've raised all but $8,500?
We have.
Could you kind of give me an idea who's participated?
Yep, the Davis County Fiscal Court will participate.
Will?
Will.
At what level?
They've got some in-kind support, and they've pledged cash as well. And then we have the Neighborhood Alliance that has contributed monies. The CVB will contribute monies. And then we're going to pay additional funds to have the outline of the mosaic lit. And then Gary has a slew of other corporate sponsors and volunteers to help do the project as well. Gary, do you have any questions for Gary? You want him to add any details?
Any questions up here? Commissioner Condor.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Calitri, what is the total number you're looking at that outside of all of your sponsorship? What total are we talking about here?
The total, not including any volunteers, and that is going to be $13,500.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Hi, Gary.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. Commissioner Smith, right?
Thanks, Mayor. Is it going to be mirrors again?
It's going to be mirrors again. We looked at several options. You know, they were quicker, flashy, a little more modern, as it were, and they were all in the 40 to, I think we had one that was $64,000 range. It was Leland Hancock that said, well, what about putting the mirrors back? And I said, well, that's 4 months of work. That's going to take a lot of time, and but we went ahead and ran the numbers, and it came out to 13.5, which was the cheapest of all of it. And then a lot of people were going, we want the mirrors back up there. You know, it's an icon. And they came to, it was the Downtown Neighborhood Alliance that came to me originally. We saw on Facebook that you did this and this kind of thing. You know, I didn't know it'd been up there for 38 years and never expected it to be up there for 38 years. But with improvements in products, we're talking, you know, over 40 years now. And I won't see that. I don't think. I'll be 116 or something like that. Some of you all may, I don't know. But yeah, this is the last time I'm going to do it. But he spoke about the labor of love. I was talking to, oh gosh, where'd you go? What's Jordan's last name? Jordan Tong, who is giving us the building. He's also paying me to scrape the building down to our starting point. Smart business guy, up and comer. I really like him. I don't know why I was talking about him though. See, I'm getting old. It's from gluing all those mirrors and standing in all that hot sun. But, man.
This is just to replace the broken pieces, is that correct?
Well,
no, going to
we
replace the
were
whole
out there
thing.
to look at the broken pieces, and the reason we lost those pieces is there was a chemical reaction between the silver and the glue, the mirror mastic that we put on there, and it broke down the silver. Well, what they've done now is they coat the silver with a protective element, and so there is no chemical reaction. So what caused it to fail this time after 38 years, we won't lose that in the future. And they've also put it in caulking tubes, and we don't have to dip it out of a 5-gallon bucket and stuff like that. And we're getting a lift and not using scaffolding. So,
Any other questions? Commissioner Sanford?
Gary, how long will it take you to do it?
I'm going to say 4 months. I'm going to say 4 months just for.
3 months if it had been 30 years ago, right? I just kidding.
No, yeah, probably. No, it took 4 months the first time, but we were using scaffolding and volunteers and.
Did you say it would be lit?
Did
you say it would be lit, or is it?
We're going to run LEDs around the outside of the
okay,
state.
okay.
Yes.
Very good, thank you.
Sort of a blue-white kind.
You do? Is it Commissioner Maglinger's turn? Go ahead.
On the lighting you're going to do around it, is that just going to be a square around it, or are you actually going to
We're going to outline the state.
outline the state? Okay, thank you.
We've got it, the glass and glue, raise it up a little bit, and we're just going to tuck it right in there.
Commissioner Smith-Wright.
Can Owensboro have a red light on it?
Well, it's
I mean, to denote where we are.
there. Well, there's already a star there that's in copper color, but we can.
But you're taking all of that down, right?
We're taking every bit of that off and then coming right
Starting
back in
all
with
over.
new. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, since we didn't have a heads up that this was going to happen. I didn't anyway. Maybe everybody else did. But I need exact numbers of who's doing what, Mark, and then maybe we'll take that under advisement and take a look at it because,
You need totals.
Yes, of what people are doing, so this can be a community project, not just an Owensboro project.
Well, we have those totals if you would.
Yeah, so we'd like to have those. I would like to have those.
Okay.
You know, if the Neighborhood Alliance is kicking in 1,000, that's actually city money as well. So that's 95 of the 13.5. So I'd just like to see just from on
2,500 from Judge Executive.
Okay.
Would you like us just to send those over?
Yeah, just send those
We'll
to
send
us.
those over.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
also as a record.
we've got guys that know how to figure stuff. They're right there.
And we've been in touch with the county attorney, Davis County attorney, and the city attorney, so we'll have this contractually.
Yeah, we just like to know the participation and actually recognize who is also helping.
Absolutely.
So that
We'll
would
get
be
that over to you.
beneficial for our decision-making process, I believe. Okay?
We'll have it over. Thank you.
All right.
Hang in there, Gary.
All right.
All right. From mirrors to sky lanterns. Chief Steve Mitchell retiring. Video.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners.
You're welcome.
So I'm here today to ask a little bit of help for myself and Tim Ross to make our community a little bit safer. So we're talking about sky lanterns. Some people may have, if you Google them, you may see Chinese sky lanterns and things like that. They're very popular in Taiwan. What these are, they come in various sizes. They can come as large as where it takes 2 or 3 people to hold them, or as small as you can hold it in your hand, and there's various sizes in between. But basically they're unmanned, uncontrolled, flaming devices that fly through the air and you have no control over where they go or where they land. So back in about 2014-15, the National Fire Protection Association researched, they were very common in the United States really until about then, 13, 14 in there. And we've actually had them a couple times at events here in town, didn't know that much about them, so we allowed them, and I haven't allowed them since because they do cause fires, plus they're a pollution hazard because they can go as far as 1 mile, 2 miles away, and you don't know where they end up. And so they're made out of bamboo, some of them are plastic, some of them are like oil paper, but they don't biodegrade. Once they land, they just stay there. So the NFPA actually declared them that they pose a serious fire hazard based on research and the amount of statistics we're coming in with these things. And we're going to show you a little news clip here of one that actually started a fire. But you can get on Google, Bing, whatever, you can research it. There's a lot of fires out there. In Kentucky, the state hasn't gone as far as ban them yet, but several cities already have. And in the fire code, the National Fire Protection Fire Code, in the most recent edition, they've actually put it in the fire code to ban it. But as you may recall, we go with the state on whatever edition of fire code they're using, and they have not updated that yet and probably won't for a few years. So the only way we can help make our community safe, and we get, about 6 requests a year from groups wanting to use these, usually downtown. So could you imagine a lot of these lifting off from Smothers Park and landing on all those buildings downtown in your downtown area, still flaming? Okay, so we usually deny that, but we need a little help. We actually need to put this in ordinance form that allow the fire department and public events to tell groups this just isn't safe. We can't do that. So if we can watch the video clip.
Strange lights lit up the sky over Lancaster County Saturday night, and the phones in our newsroom lit up.
Fire officials say they are sky lanterns, and they know that for sure because of where one landed. Here's News 8's Mike Straub.
They are becoming increasingly popular at weddings, memorials, other parties, sky lanterns. And while they are certainly crowd pleasers when they go up, they can really cause some problems once they come back down. Just ask one Lancaster County community that found out the hard way this weekend. Symbols of peace and celebration around the world, but firefighters have a slightly different vision of sky lanterns.
When we see these lanterns, we see a flaming source of combustion that's going up in the air, and wherever it could land, it could really catch something on fire.
A charity event in Lancaster County Saturday night sent sky lanterns over Millersville. One landed on top of a university building, causing minor damage.
And one of them got onto the roof of a building and actually caught the building on fire. And what many people are not aware is not only roofs of homes, but commercial buildings have lots of combustible material.
But incidents like this are why the National Association of State Fire Marshal calls them uncontrolled fire hazards and is pushing for regulation and a complete ban of the lanterns, just like other airborne fireworks.
These are a flaming device that goes up in the air. I don't know what the reason that the state allows them, but I think if a lot of the fire marshals across their country get their way, that these will not be allowed anymore.
It's nothing but paper and a bamboo ring, so it is biodegradable once it lands. Now the instructions say don't let it go in a windy area and to watch out for power lines overhead, but there's really no way to tell where it will land, and that's why firefighters say is the real danger.
If you really are going to use them, you have to be extremely careful what you do with them and make certain that you watch where they go.
You can buy them online or in fireworks stores, and they fall under the same regulations as fireworks. And currently, right now in the state legislature, there are no bills that would affect their legality. In Lancaster, Mike Straub, News 8.
Is that Lancaster, Pennsylvania?
Yes. So, and I don't, that's about 4 years old, actually, that video
He had his
is.
sign upside down, by the way. Did you notice
So,
that?
I'm sorry.
He had his sign up upside down.
Oh, did he? I didn't see that. So those sky lanterns, the thing about here in Kentucky, they're trying to figure out, okay, do we classify them as like a firework? The problem with fireworks, there's actually some control. We have regulations on fireworks and distances because we know what they're going to do. A certain size firework, where it's a 3-inch, 4-inch, 5-inch, or whatever, we know they're going to go 200 feet, 300 feet, or whatever. A sky lantern, you have no control of. You don't know how long it's going to burn. You don't know where it's going to go. So the other option, we have a ordinance that we've prepared for you to look at, which totally bans it. The other option is you could declare it a firework and put it under the permitting, but there's really nowhere within the city limits we could permit it because you need at least probably a mile of clear area for these things before you could lift them off. So within the city limits, we feel as staff the best way to go is just ban them totally. Now, obviously, it's going to be hard to enforce individuals, right? But we're talking about when large groups come and they want to launch 100 of these at a time, that would give us, some background to be able to tell them, that's just not safe. We can't do that.
Would it make sense to be a city-county joint agreement?
We haven't discussed it with the county, but by all means, if you wanted to do
There's
that.
so much county in the city.
Yes.
Wait just a minute. Got something? Hang on a second.
Go ahead.
I can't tell when you're jumping in. I'm sorry. I was just thinking, if with all the, you know how many places that are inside the city limits, so I was just thinking, do you call that interlocal agreement or something? Is that what you call that?
We could do, or a joint ordinance.
Joint ordinance,
I think
yes.
we ought to, I think this is good, what you're saying is good. I think we might ought to try and explore that a little bit and see
Sure.
if that doesn't make sense. Commissioner Maglinger.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
I believe I've seen similar things at Romp several times. There's something that's
That's
lit up and
possible.
goes up in there, so it might be a good idea to have the county involved.
Yes. And a lot of one of the major fire causes, of course, is grass fires, wildfires, things like that, field fires. In the statistics, I've also seen cell phone towers, believe it or not, where they've set cell phone towers on fire. But of course, in town, we're more worried about the structures and the roofs and things like that. So,
Commissioner Smith, right?
Thank you.
Well,
The symphony used to do that.
Yes.
I didn't go last year or this year, so I don't know if they did it or not. So, but every year they would let them off. So
yeah, a concert on the lawn.
yeah.
They did this year.
And those were probably the smaller ones
Smaller
that
ones,
you can
yeah.
hold in your hand.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Size of a milk carton.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
so are you?
So we're saying this would be blanket. It would be all sizes.
It would be all of them.
Yes.
Otherwise. Any other discussion? Staff?
Okay. Well, I'll get with Steve Lynn and we'll get with Claude and the county and see what they want to do. So.
That'd be worth a discussion.
All right. Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Jeff Sanford likes to do those things too. He likes to set those off.
Only if it goes towards the bridge.
And if I'm with you, right?
We have a policeman in here. Okay, officer.
Was an accident.
Oh, yeah. Moving right along to another topic of extreme importance, from murals to lanterns to Gabe's Tower update. Miss Abby Shelton, Community Development Director, who too has a PowerPoint.
Mayor and Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to provide you with the current status of Gabe's Tower. I'll keep it brief. I'm not going to read all these bullet points, but this is an illustration of kind of the timeline of what's happened to Gabe's. Of course, in 1963, it was built by Gabe Fiorella as a tower motor inn. It's gone through several iterations of being a motel. In '78, it started to downturn because of the Executive Inn, of course, was built on the river. 1983, it was sold to two Nashville men, repurposed. 1986, Senior Adult Ministries planned to convert the building into an apartment complex, but that fell through. 1988, the hotel closes. 1991, it was bought again. The National Foundation for Retirement and Housing Preservation was slated it for apartments. That fell through. 1997, Cypress Connection bought it. 1999, it was repurposed and a new hotel opened under the Knights Inn franchise. And in 2001, under the same owners, the building's name changes to Sun Hotel. In 2005, it went back to the Regency Tower for $1.5 million. Then it went back to Sherajul Hoke of Madisonville, and he put the tower back up for sale, and that's when it started to really decline. In 2013, things kind of came to a head when the tower was being sited by the city of Owensboro, and Pennsylvania-based developers Trevor Kerforaker, Richard Killian, and Kenneth Bellow Sr. purchased the tower for $185,000 with the promise to renovate the hotel again. In 2015, City launched the Triplet Twist program, and the environmental demolition group gutted the building, taking most of the anything that was in the building off of it, leaving a few transite panels. In 2016, City Hall began citing the former property owners for code violations, and the demolition group sues the company for failure to pay the work that it did. In 2017, City administration had entered into negotiations to purchase the tower from past and present, or from the former owners before Bob Zimmerman, and then Bob Zimmerman purchased the building from the Pennsylvania group. In 2018, things kind of went south between relations of between Bob Zimmerman and the city. And then in April 19, 2019, after months of negotiation, the city and Zimmerman signed a purchase agreement. And finally, we acquired the property in September 5th, 2019. So 25 years later, hotel closes, and here we are. We have a blighted property. Current conditions, City of Owensboro had a structural evaluation in 2012. The results were that the building was sound, mostly concrete. We did a Phase 1 ASTM from the Kentucky Department for Environmental Protection in March of 2017. There were some transite panels still present on the property as well as on the building. And then from just our trained staff and being in with the property maintenance, code enforcement, as well as Wayne Shelton, our public works director, from the building being gutted, there is substantial work that would need to be done to rehab the property. Mechanical systems were in the basement. Some have been removed or they're not functioning. The building was stripped of any material of any value. Transite panels, like I said, still exist. Electrical service would have to be restored as well as brought up to code. We would need to restore elevators, backup power for elevators, and make all the amenities ADA accessible, which is a substantial cost. Obviously, it has serious issues with its pool, and the stairwell does not meet fire code. So on September 23rd, 2019, the State Historic Preservation Office wanted to come down and take a look for themselves at the condition of Gabe's Tower. Most of them had not seen it since it had been gutted by environmental demolition group. So they came down, had a tour. I think there were a few of us that braved the stairs and climbed up each level. The windows are missing. There is absolutely nothing on the floors. There's an old, there's there's a lot of old stuff in there, but the old power grid that the demolition group used was in there still. That's the pool on the roof, and as you can see, a lot of the windows are missing from the top. So, next steps for Gabe's Tower. We have released an RFP, request for proposals, for developers to submit their plans, if any, for rehabilitation of the property. We had hoped to get responses back by November 7th so I could report, but we have extended that deadline because we have had a little interest, and there was a concern for the proper timeline to submit proposals. So we extended that to November 21st, and staff is currently working with the State Historic Preservation Office as well as going through the environmental review process for future plans on the site. I will entertain any questions.
Thank you, Abby. Problem is, all this does is open up the questions again from the community about what we're going to do with Gabe's Tower. So I'd like to have some idea of where we actually are going. I mean, November the 21st is 10 days away. And then are we extending that again if we don't get what we like, or is that the cutoff date?
No.
You know, just, they're going to call us all and let us reiterate this whole thing again, and I'm tired of.
So I've gotten
talking in
direction
circles.
from city manager to start looking at other options for the property. Of course, when November 21st comes, we will sit down and assess if we've received any proposals. Any series proposals that are received will be considered thoroughly by staff, and if there are proposals received, we will enter, and we like that we will enter into negotiations with those developers. If that does not happen, there have been plans and discussion to move the transit facility to that property, so we will enter into serious specifications and making sure we've got drawings and all that stuff that's needed to relocate the transit office from downtown, because it does involve federal money from the transit administration. So either way, what we'll have to do is go through the process. If we're going to use federal funds on that property, we're going to have to go through the process of making sure that historic preservation is okay with our use, as well as either whether it's HUD funds or transit funds. So we'll have to enter into a memorandum of agreement with them to make sure that they are happy with the use, because they have slated it for eligibility on the National Register.
Okay, so the historic preservation, is that local or state?
State. It is enacted by a federal law.
And we have no say about that now, that it's the historical preservation people think if it ought to stay, it can stay?
We have a negotiation capability with them. So they've been involved in the process now for, I think, 3 years, and I've talked with them back and forth about the deterioration of the property and the need for a new facility or something of that nature on that property, because it is a dilapidated structure that is not feasible to be, in our eyes, rehabbed. So keeping them involved and letting them understand that we've done everything that we can, including putting an RFP out there, is in essence what we've done our due diligence at this point.
So that was the reason for this RFP, is to satisfy the preservation group, basically, and us too, I guess.
Yeah, and if we can find a private developer that's willing to put the money into rehab that property in a feasible way, then obviously we're willing to look at that as well.
Okay, so we have no plans drawn up. We don't know about actually putting the transit system there. It's just a thought of that Wayne feels like that's the best place for it to go. We don't have any idea of a footprint or anything. We do have, I'm just trying to look at a timeline. We're talking 2 more years before any of this can be possibly completed. And what do we do with the transit building that we have here that we have federal money in?
Well, sir, from what I can understand is that we've already been in talks with the FTA. I do have a conference call with them and Pamela Canary next week to make sure we know the next steps through those funding sources. Mm-hmm. Wayne, if I may speak, has identified funding for the new transit facility, and we are looking at the agreement between the FTA and ourselves and how much of that funding would carry over and to this new property, because we do have some stipulations on that property. So we are looking at all those options. We just have not spent money on actual specifications. We did enter and try to go that route a couple of years ago, but that fell through.
So you all as staff have decided that's where the new transit system should be.
Wayne, would you like to have some input?
City manager?
That I believe is no. Again, I think that's
You
one
say
option.
no?
It's one option.
One option,
that
okay.
is-
Because somebody's going to ask.
Sure.
You know, and so the more we get this out here, the less we have to chatter back and forth and me get something wrong.
No.
Wayne has done extensive investigation into.
Get to the mic there, please, sir.
Wayne Shelton, our Public Works Director, has done extensive investigation into the possibility of locations and alternate locations to that site, as well as working out the footprint, what the building should look like, some of the amenities that it needs to service the patrons that use it. So we've got quite a good idea, ready to move forward depending on how this RFP process
So when when I get this call, I'm going to refer them to one of you two, or to Abby, or to Wayne Shelton, so you can explain. Obviously, we need to get those big wide loads off 4th Street. I think that's imperative. I think that's an unsafe situation. I agree with that. But and when you say, you know, move it there, I, as an elected official, like to know where we are in that process so I can at least talk halfway intelligently about it.
Yeah, we're prepared to move multiple directions depending on how the outcome is, but we've got different rules depending on the grant funds that we seek. Wayne Shelton and Pamela Canary have been very good about building those relationships again with KYTC, and that's been super helpful. So as soon as we work through these processes of meeting those grant requirements, as Abby had spoken to, so that Wayne can decide which direction and how we move forward from there.
So then you'll apply for a state grant or a federal grant?
Potentially state, federal.
And federal. And when are those grant opportunities come available? 1st of next year? Is that the
Wayne and his
timeline?
staff are looking for them constantly, so there's quite a few opportunities that exist out there. So,
okay, 2 years. Just a guess.
I hate to give you a date at this point, but
That's all right. I'm just guessing. It's just checking. So, anybody else have anything, Commissioner Smith Wright?
Thank you. You said that that's just one of some other places. Where are the other places?
Other places, meaning for transit, or I think I said other potential uses. I mean, so theoretically we could.
I thought you said that if the transit didn't go there, there were other places that we were.
No, I intended to say, I don't know what I said. I intended to say other potential uses.
Okay.
I mean, we could potentially redevelop the site or seek proposals to redevelop the site for other commercial or professional uses if the commission decided we didn't want to relocate our transit facility to that location.
I mean, put it on tax rolls, what you're saying. Okay, Commissioner Condit.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Shelton, the deadline, as the mayor stated, is, and on your presentation, is November 21st. It's been out there for some time. How many legitimate, and I know that's a ambiguous term, calls have you had, or individuals that are truly interested in wanting to submit a proposal for viable use of the Gabe's Tower?
I will have to defer because I'm not the one that allows access to the property. So I know of one that has actually visited the property and looked at it physically. Wayne, is there any more? Just one.
Just one? And so when everything's finished, you get all of your RFPs back, and again, trying to evaluate whether or not a project is legitimate, what criteria do you use to figure out if something's really legitimate? Because everybody's got dreams, and you just put out 15 scenarios of individuals that had all the dreams in the world to do, but yet fail. So how do you do that?
It's obviously a very fluid process because it's a request for proposals. So we do have criteria and scoring criteria in the evaluation process. So when we look at bringing those proposals in and whether or not there's the experience of the developer, have they done this before? Do they use tax credits? Do they have basically the funding? Is the funding there to complete it? And at what level are they asking the city to participate, if at all? So it's a matter of feasibility. At that point, we'll narrow it down and present it to city administration and as well you for your pleasure as to whether or not we really will allow this to happen. We don't want to see another 25 years go by.
Any of us do.
I assume it's not in the opportunity zone, is it? Which would really be helpful. Anything else? Commissioner Sam?
Yes, Abby. Once we get through this process on the 21st, I've seen this project for a while sitting up here, and I'd like to see the thing come down myself. And I'll state that as a fact. I don't see how anybody can take it and put the money into it in that location and make anything work. With that being said, to take it down, what funds will be used to take it down, and how long will it take to take it down? Is that the 2-year frame that y'all just gave us? It would take around 2 years?
That was what I gave them. I'm just sticking my nose in where it doesn't belong.
Is that close, or is it?
So it depends on what the end use will be. If we're going to use federal funds, we'll have to go through the federal process of identifying the environmental review.
Okay.
Of course, State Historic Preservation has identified it as eligible for the National Register. So that's another thing we'll have to consider if we enter into an MOA with them, negotiations to say, okay, are these the stipulations you'll put on the property? Are they feasible? What can we do? Now, that's only if we use federal funds. Now, if we use local funds, I think community vision funds is what we will dip into. Then it lies in actually the onus of the city. If we demolish the property and have the plan of grouping that parcel with another parcel we've purchased adjacent to it, that's a pretty good chunk of land. We also own a piece of property across the street, and I think they're, the owners of the properties surrounding that are willing to let go of their properties as well to see economic development happen in that area. So if we were to go to another RFP for just those proposals after the building is demolished, then it would be put on the back on the tax rolls, but we could not use federal funds on that property. So
that would be the quickest way.
That would be the quickest way to do it.
Okay, thank you.
City Manager, Assistant City Manager, go ahead.
If I may, we do have funds set aside in your community division, and we do have demolition specs drawn up.
Okay.
Wayne Shelton and Kevin Colligan both have been involved in those. So depending on how this RFP process goes, you move through the environmental piece, and then ultimately if demolition is the way we go, then we're prepared to move on that.
Do we have the numbers on the demolition?
We have estimates, yes.
Okay. You know what they are?
Looking at roughly $600,000.
Okay, thank you.
Item number 4 is complete. Item number 5, the proverbial Article 21. Abby Shelton, Community Development Director.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Hold on. So I'm going to give you just a brief history, just for knowledge of where Article 21 started, and then look at the maps that encompass all the different districts. So the origin was in 2001 when we completed the Owensboro Riverfront Master Plan. 2003, the first overlay district on Veterans Boulevard was enacted. In 2008, Gateway Planning Group was engaged by the EDC. And then in 2009, as all of you know, we entered into a downtown Owensboro placemaking initiative, which has spurred the development we see today. The objectives, I can't see that far. These are very important because it delineates the land uses within Article 21. Included properties within and adjacent to the B2 Central Business District. It's a land use tool, important opportunities to revitalize and create a sustainable downtown, promote development and design standards for preservation and revitalization of older properties downtown, encourage the development of commercial activities, housing, civic activities, and other economic opportunities that will bring people to the downtown area, to promote a pedestrian-friendly downtown and stimulate private investment downtown. So each character district has been delineated to encourage either pedestrian, residential, or commercial activity. We have civic open space, designated civic building, downtown campus, downtown core, downtown transition, the Frederica Boulevard Historic Core, the neighborhood district, our character district, recommended civic building activities, riverfront core, riverfront crossing, and riverfront edge. Each of these maps is shown in this conglomerate of the entire overlay district. We'll briefly run through them. In the blue, you'll see the historic core. This is mainly all the historic buildings and one of the historic districts that our local historic council oversees as far as development. So when somebody goes in to rehab a building, they come to us and ask for certificates of appropriateness through OMPC, and then we will review their designs to make sure the historic preservation standards are withheld. in this area. The next is the downtown core. This encourages redevelopment surrounding the historic core and is designed to be pedestrian friendly with any development in there. Next is the riverfront core. It promotes mixed use development along Veterans Smothers and the Ohio River. Civic open space, of course, are the public uses that you see in green along our riverfront and within downtown. The riverfront edge encourages residential and recreational and appropriate community uses. Downtown transition is mainly commercial residential, and it is the main transition from the downtown core. Of course, we've got the Frederica Boulevard that supports development across and along Frederica Street and extends to 9th Street. The downtown campus supports development of Brush University along Frederica Street. And the neighborhood, of course, is creates not a barrier, but for the heavily residential areas outside of downtown, protects major development from happening within those older areas. So the purpose of this presentation is to identify, because there were concerns raised about the opportunity for residential location within downtown, and so at first blush, these are the districts that allow ground floor residential options, and the colors you can see that pretty much excludes, and this is ground floor storefront, so it's the entire span of the building. These are the only areas that will allow that. It's the riverfront edge, downtown transition, and the downtown campus. So to understand kind of where we've been and where we are at, these are the most of the investments that have been made that totaled in 2013 about $373 million. And then I did a comparison of the total land assessment from 2002 to 2019, and we did see an increase of $106 million. And those are PBA records that were pulled and the best matching that we could do with parcels. So options. In Article 21, if the commission were so inclined to try to increase residential options downtown, we do have a mixed use caveat written in there that not only could we do mixed use up floors, but do a business storefront and then have residential located behind it. And City of Victorville, California, excuse me, and Pleasanton have all implemented the horizontal mixed use, which we do currently have written into Article 21, and all of the districts do allow it. But I don't know if we do a good job as promoting that or not. And these two cities are instances of where I found they have actually incentivized developers to create those spaces and businesses to locate within those spaces. And all the research that I did, which of course I'm not Brian Howard or OMPC, but the APA, everybody says the commercial storefronts are strongly encouraged because it does give the idea of people walking on a sidewalk and being able to easily access. And of course there's safety issues and all that, those concerns as well, if you have residential on the front. So that's my presentation. Any questions?
Any questions? You're off the hot seat. Do you have one? Are you in the real estate business?
Every once in a while.
Go for it.
I hate to compare us to Bowling Green or anything like that, but I was there because my kids go there. In downtown Bowling Green, down by their park, there are residential areas right on top of the park with first floor people living on the first. Very nice places. So that is highly discouraged. Why would they do that and we wouldn't try to do that? Why would we?
I can look at the motivation for why they changed ordinance or what the caveats are of their ordinance. Like I said, in all the major planning organizations that I looked at, to the whole purpose of Article 21 and our downtown placemaking initiative it's to create a constant movement of people. So the focus is on retail, but I do understand your concerns, and there may be a certain way that they rezoned or looked at a group of property that was low-hanging fruit.
Right. I understand the movement of people, but you have to have people to get
To
them to
move,
move.
yes.
If you don't have people to move, then it doesn't do any good. So my question is how we get more people living in the area to move, and whether it's they're on the backside of a commercial or all first floor or whatever. We just need to figure something out. That's just my opinion. So.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
You know, when you go to Florida and you rent a condo for the week or something, I mean, the first floor units are a lot cheaper than the 18th floor unit. Because there are a lot of people who don't want strangers walking around their front door while they're in there having coffee or whatever. So I would still think that would have to kind of come into the conversation is you know, just the lack of privacy, you know, owning a, you know, a residence on the first floor of a downtown area where you're trying to get people to come and walk. This doesn't seem logical to me, but maybe I'm just old-fashioned, I guess. But I don't know. That's my 2 cents.
Mayor, if I may?
Sure.
Just on the fire side, there are fire and life safety code implications of mixed use. When you do it vertical, it's easier. When you're doing them back to back, so let's say you do a commercial, any type of commercial front with residential behind it. In a new construction, it wouldn't be that hard because then you could build the fire code requirements within a current structure. You're changing the occupancy of the building, so that means it would be probably very expensive to do a retail front and apartments in the back in an existing structure. So I just wanted to bring that up for you.
You have to build a firewall between them and all
Correct.
that stuff.
It'd have to be at least 2 hours, a 2-hour firewall.
Wow.
Yes.
Commissioner Maglinger.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Abby, on this Article 21, I printed it out and tried to read it. It's about this thick. And it seems to be pretty complicated. Is there someone in the city or someone that can work with a developer to help filter through that?
Well, we do employ, currently did employ a downtown design administrator, so that person is the buffer and the first flush of who the developer speaks with. We have tried to identify through the Historic Preservation Board of a way to flag those properties that could have options for as far as historic preservation and facade design. It's something we can't seem to nail down, but it is the downtown design administrator who has all that knowledge, and if somebody has building plans or has a draft and says, hey, is this possible, OMPC will send them to the downtown design administrator to make sure that everything that they're doing complies with Article 21. So that is, in essence, the person. They are employed with OMPC.
Thank you, Abby. Thank you, Mayor.
Commissioner Smith-Wright.
Yes, sir.
You're welcome.
I think the problem is that we don't have any affordable downtown property for young people or anyone who would like to live downtown. I mean, if you're not a millionaire, I can't live downtown. And so we've got to find a way where we can have some affordable spaces for these people, and then we'll have people moving and doing. But until we do that, we're right here. We're stuck.
As you all know, in my capacity, I'm going to administer the Northwest NRSA, and right now I'm conducting a housing market analysis for that area to specifically identify properties that can be better used for affordable housing. So that is something that I'm very passionate about solving. You know, everybody thinks downtown, but downtown can expand a little bit more, and I think if with the opportunities we have pushing west, there are some properties that will lend itself to affordable housing. So I'm looking at that.
You know, you can borrow $250 million to make your downtown nice and then not have property values go up. So which way do you want it? Do you want to have a super nice downtown, or do you want to have the old downtown so you'd have better houses? So that's kind of the quandary that you get in when you have progress. Okay, anybody else? Sneak out of there.
Run.
Okay, city project list, city manager Nate Pagan.
Thank you, Mayor. You've had the list to review, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
I'll start then. Let's talk about the bridge lighting. Might as well start at the top. So when we began this process, we thought it was going to be $1 million. Now it's almost $2 million, correct? And so we say we have money coming from the TIF because it qualifies. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, we've got we have an amount of request for disbursement of almost $500,000 in Frankfurt now for downtown TIF. Is that correct? I don't understand what it says here. $498,000 has been submitted to the state. Does that get you? Does that mean that check would be $498,000 if they ever paid it?
We have received those reimbursements.
You've already got that.
We received them. Yes. I'm sorry that didn't get into the report. We did receive the reimbursements, and I don't have the numbers in front of me. I'm sorry they're not in the report. But the consultant said that they were very pleased with how close the reimbursement was to our request, especially with it being our first one. And so we're working with the state now to compare back and forth where we're off.
So that's $500,000 for the year then, and give or take a few bucks, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, and that money goes into what pile of money?
It goes into the TIF funds, the new
TIF
funds that we set up. There's 2 different TIF funds, one for downtown and one for Gateway 54.
And so are they restricted funds, or how do you dip in there and get after them?
They are restricted somewhat based on the parameters that we set aside with the state. As far as it has to be the approved public infrastructure that was in the application to the state. And the bridge lights was included in that.
All right, so as of to date, that whatever we got, that check, that's all we've been reimbursed for downtown tax increment
That's
finance.
correct. Well, this is the state money.
State
now,
money, right.
We've also done a transfer from the general fund for the local TIF dollars as well.
Okay. All right. So you're going to take TIF money and you're going to take your community vision money to get to the $2 million. That right, Bigfoot?
We're going to use your community vision funds, and then the TIF dollars will be used for payment on that debt service for multiple downtown projects.
Okay, so could you give us an update on your latest chats with Tucky, KC, whatever it is?
Yes, sir. We have submitted and answered all the questions that KYTC had last week, and we're waiting. Pertaining to location of the conduit, cost reductions, a few just engineering changes that they wanted to see in that design, and then submitted those documents, and we're waiting for that final permit. So at this point, they have no other questions. They're satisfied, or we have satisfied their questions, just waiting for the permit process to.
So we did get a reduction in what that initial cost was by going through this extra step. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So this is that multi-light thing, you know. So
Yes,
$2 million.
1.9.
That's what it starts at. $2 million. Okay, just checking. Thank you for the update. I'm not going to talk about the Bluegrass Center. Jack Fisher, Parker Innovations. Ms. Rogers, could you come forward, please?
Thanks, Mayor. It's an exciting time at Fisher Park. I'm pleased to say that we're progressing along with the project. Thus far, we've gotten 3 of the 4 fields excavated. We're working on subgrading base. The trunk line gentleman is on property today to start putting in the main drainage trunk line on each field. Behind the scenes, we've gotten submittals for irrigation. When we bid the project, you have to meet certain level of specifications. Then they submit to us the actual materials they're going to use. So we're going through irrigation materials right now. Drainage materials, I think I sent those and we signed off on those last week through Kevin. We've gotten construction plans that I just sent over to Kevin for the back parking lot and the ticketing entrance. We also have the construction drawings for the main entry sign and the service entrance. So they've got till next Monday to review those. We'll get word back, and hopefully those projects will be getting bid within the next probably 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay, so you're managing this project, right?
I am trying to. Sometimes I feel like the project is managing me some days.
Okay, so how would you estimate we are as far as on time to reach the goal of being able to do the tournaments like we talked
Yeah,
about.
the field project, I'm very confident that we'll be on time with the field project. We've built time into our schedule, and there's a significant amount of work that they'll be able to do over the winter. And you won't see, quote unquote, the carpet get laid probably until we'll start that process in April, and they'll work around the clover length. So a lot of what they're doing, the component pieces, are starting on one field and moving to the next, and they're following each other. The guys that do the geysers out there, Gaddis is out there pulling dirt. Then we got the trunk guy coming, and they'll work field to field to field behind one another.
So are you under budget?
Are we under budget? Yes, sir.
Good. And you feel confident this is going to be on time?
I do.
Good.
I do.
That's all I have. Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you also to the paving guys. I've gotten a lot of nice comments for actually putting a little pavement out there. Can we go to the tax increment financing thing for 54? And so I guess since it's the same verbiage, then we've received that as well.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. We'll make an announcement about pickleball. Altoff Merchant, one of our pickleball guys, and his partner finished silver medalist in national championships for, I want to say 40-year-old bracket. I don't want to say, I don't think it's 40 to 50, but he has a partner from Minnesota, and he did bring back to Owensboro the silver medal for, they almost got gold, but they got beat by younger guys. So that's all I have. Anybody else have anything? Commissioner Condor?
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
Ms. Hamrick, on the 2 TIFs, 54 in downtown, the state's allocation as listed 291 for 54, about 500,000 for downtown. But you had mentioned that that did not include the local portion, correct?
That's correct. These amounts are what we submitted to the state for their consideration in reimbursing the city.
And they were fairly close. You were very close
to what they
anticipated, correct?
Yeah, 3 to 5%. Mm-hmm.
And have you calculated then our local?
Yes, we've already, based on the TIFs run on a calendar year, and the city runs on a fiscal year into June. And so for the activity for 2018 calendar year, we moved those funds over from the general fund for the local tax dollars into the TIF funds. And we are collecting our 2019 data as the year progresses, and we'll submit that then to the state by the end of April for 2019.
So just curious then, what's the total amount that we have now in our accounts, or you don't have an idea yet?
I don't have that in front of me, but I'm happy to get that to you later today.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Anything else from the elected officials? Anything else from staff? Anything else from the public? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
We are adjourned.